Welcome to the Good Fit Careers podcast, where we explore perspectives on work that fits. I'm Ryan Dickerson, your host. Today's guest is Ankit Sethi. Ankit is an enterprise account executive with Alphabet's Google Cloud platform. The Google Cloud platform generated $33 billion in revenue in 2023, contributing just over 10% of Alphabet's total annual revenue. Alphabet ranked number 8 on the Fortune 500 with a $2.26 trillion market cap, generated $318 billion in revenue in 2023 with 180,000 employees worldwide. Ankit started his career with Teach for America as a math teacher before joining Google in 2015. Ankit, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me, Ryan.
It's great to have you on the show, man. So to get us started here, could you tell us a little bit about the work that you do today?
Yeah, absolutely. So in my current role, I'm a senior account executive within the Google Cloud part of the company. So I've been at Google now for roughly 9 years, and I've been in my current role for just over 2. And in my role, I work with large strategic accounts within the organization and support them in all their endeavors with cloud and beyond.
And then to help us understand where you come from and how you came to be, would you tell us a little bit about what you were like as a kid?
Sure. If you, I guess, asked my mom, she would say I talked a lot, which is totally true. I think, you know me pretty well, Ryan. It's not something I'm shy from. I always like to be kind of the center of attention. I grew up in a really big family, big extended family, and my dad was youngest of 6 and my mom was youngest of 7. And I was the youngest of that inverted pyramid. So I had a lot of older cousins to bother and ask a ton of questions to. But yeah, I would say me as a kid was talkative, inquisitive. I think always ask for forgiveness, not permission. It's something I learned pretty early.
Did you have a sense of what you wanted to be when you grew up, when you were a kid?
If you ask my child self, I would probably say an actor or the president. No real thought beyond that. I think that probably aligned with me wanting to be the center of attention and kind of in front of everyone. So that's what I wanted to do as a kid. I think as I got a little bit older in middle school, I really gravitated towards Model UN. So loved like the diplomacy route, was really interested in that as I went through school.
Nice. That's awesome. Tell us a little bit about your education.
Sure. Yeah. So I went to public school through grades all the way up through 6. And then 7 through 12th, I went to a private day school in Northern Virginia. After that, I went to Syracuse University, where I met you. After that, I got my master's in education through Boston University while I did a program called Teach for America.
Nice. How was Teach for America? What was that like?
Teach for America was a very unique and interesting experience. If you asked other core members, you'd probably hear 20 different experiences. I was in an experience that I had a fantastic 3 years where I taught at a high school just outside of Boston. Really loved it. Really enjoyed working like in a school district and in a classroom. You truly are kind of the CEO of your own classroom. So, as a 22-year-old teaching students who are 19 or 20 in some instances, it makes you grow up really, really fast. So, I had an incredible experience. I can't speak highly enough of working in education.
That's awesome. Good for you. What'd you learn about yourself in Teach for America?
That's a great question. I think I learned that I can operate on little to no sleep for a long period of time. I learned how to keep my head above water. I learned to ask for help when I needed it. And I learned how to be professional really, really fast. I had done internships and things like that beforehand, but when you're in a classroom and it's just you and 25 other kids for 6 hours a day, whatever it might be, on a rotating basis, you learn how to command a presence. And then also you learn how to be pretty fair, right? Kids are like they pick up things very fast, right? So if you're having a bad day, they know it, right? And they'll let you know that they know it.
Ruthless.
Yeah, absolutely. So the other thing I probably learned is how to have a pretty thick skin. You can't really let anything bother you. And if you do, you kind of have to leave it at the door, or when the bell goes off in the next period, kind of have a reset. So all those things I think culminated into growing up really fast, commanding a presence in front of 25 plus, teenagers. And you just learn how to be really, really effective with little time. I've never worked harder than the years I was in the classroom. So being able to manage that classroom, get your lesson plans in order, be able to pivot on a dime if something's not working, all the while trying to teach actual concepts and being held to certain standards for standardized testing. It's really a juggling act. So I learned everything in the classroom. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to do. So leaving that experience, obviously my day to day now can be taxing at times, but I just remind myself it's not the classroom, right? Very different experience.
Yeah, sure. Would you bring us along and tell us a little bit about what your entree into Google was like, and what your hiring process was like when you were, you know, essentially just beginning in that experience?
I was in the classroom, as I said, for 3 years. Teach for America is a 2-year program. As I said, I really loved it. I just gotten my master's in ed. So I definitely wanted to stay in the classroom and teach for another year. I was at the point where I really liked what I was doing, but I knew that if I didn't try something else, I would be in the classroom for, or at least an education within a district for likely the rest of my career. And so I said, let me try something else. And I was mostly applying to ed tech startups in the greater Boston area. One of my fellow core members within Teach for America, who had taught for 2 years, I was just catching up with her. And she was working at Google at the time. And she said, hey, you should really apply. And I said, what am I applying for? Like, what's the role? She said, don't worry about it. Let me send you a referral. Let's see what happens. And I said, okay. I didn't think anything of it really. I went through the process. The process took about, I would say, 2.5 to 3 months. I think there was about 6 or 7 rounds of interviews. As I went through it, I still didn't really have a concept of what I was going to be doing. I knew I was going to be working within the advertising organization within Google. But beyond that, I did not have any sense. And the interviews I had were mostly around how I think, how I problem solve. Am I a good fit for the company? It wasn't about role related necessarily. Obviously, I did my homework on Google and the advertising ecosystem, but very surface level. And at the end of the interview process, I essentially had 2 offers. One was a soft offer from a tech startup within Cambridge. And they said, we're going through funding. And by the end of the summer, as long as the funding goes through, we should be able to offer you a role. Google said, here's your offer, no negotiation. You have 5 days, let us know. And as much as I wanted to work within the ed tech sector and within education overall, I couldn't really turn down the opportunity to work at a company like Google. Super exciting to me. I probably convinced myself more throughout the interview process that this is really exciting and something I want to explore. And so, as I said, I couldn't say no. And the next thing I knew, I moved to New York and I started my journey at Google. It'll be 9 years ago in August.
Wow. What an amazing journey. And tell us a little bit about what that first corporate job was really like. And I don't know, what did you learn? What did you have to figure out to become proficient at that job?
Yeah, so it was a whirlwind. I joined Google. The office in New York is massive. So going from working at a school, a public school outside of Boston, to working at one of the biggest companies in the world and having all the resources you could ever want for anything you want to do, that was incredibly overwhelming. I had a really supportive team. I knew nothing about advertising really, or the ecosystem and what I would actually be doing, but you really learn how to drink from a fire hose, right? I know that's a saying people often, an adage people often say, but it's so true. You are a sponge. You absorb what you can, and what you don't, you just have to prioritize. So that first, I'd say 3 to 6 months was a whirlwind. Moving to a new city, starting a new job, meeting a ton of people, but it was really fun. It was really exciting. I kept on reminding myself it was such a shock because you're going from a public school where you're on a tight budget, obviously, to working at this very money rich company with really cool cafes and baristas and gyms and sushi and like all the things that you hear about. So that was super interesting to be able to see the other side, I would say, in a lot of ways. And I kept on telling people, what they asked what it was like to come from education. And I said, like, the only way I can put it is when we would get like coffee and cookies, at a team meeting, it was super exciting, right? Then you come to a place like Google and anything you could possibly want is maybe 30 steps away. That is something I don't think I'll ever take for granted, or it's just something that like you're always reminded of. It's so different. So very exciting, very demanding in a lot of ways. But as I said, it was nothing as compared to the classroom. So I thought my time in education really prepared me for really anything I would do after that.
What a beautiful thing. You've been at Google for 9 years now. You've been promoted a couple of times. How did that evolve? What was that path like for you?
It was not easy. Standards are really high at Google. They expect a lot from their employees and they give a lot back. You were working with incredibly intelligent, driven, talented people. And that is energizing, but also it can be intimidating. So being able to navigate my own path was important. I've been very lucky that at Google, I've had a variety of different managers and they've all been absolutely fantastic and supportive. And so for me to really find success at the company, I think one thing has always been true: being able to align with your manager and making sure they understand what your goals are, where you're trying to succeed, where you're trying to develop, what what you would like to be doing, and then making sure that you're creating a joint plan with them to be able to crush those goals. So as I said, it wasn't easy. I didn't get all rainbows in my reviews every single time, but every time I struggled, it was a learning opportunity. And so I think what was more important than being disappointed about maybe a review or a project that didn't go as well was, what did you learn from it, and how are you going to step up the next day and be able to crush what maybe you missed the day before. So kind of having that growth mindset has always been important and valuable to me, but also making sure you're aligned with your management, your leadership on that same growth mindset.
Was there a moment when you felt like you really hit your stride?
That's a really interesting question, Ryan, because I feel like every time I've hit my stride, I'm ready for a change, right? And so I'll explain that a little bit, right? So it's something that when you're struggling through a new role or a new project, you're learning, you're trying to figure out your way from point A to point B, and then once you get to a place where you hit your stride and you have success, it's a great feeling, right? For me, that feeling is a little bit fleeting, right? Whenever I'm in a situation where I'm hitting my stride, I start thinking about, okay, how can I get uncomfortable again? There's like, I guess, comfort in the discomfort of your situation. So that's been a big driving force throughout my career, is whenever I feel even the slightest bit complacent, I start looking for other ways to conquer a new challenge. Now, that's not to say that, you want to switch jobs every 6 months or anything like that. What's been really important is have a set goal that you need to achieve, navigate, what that path is going to be, partner with people that are willing to help you towards that goal. And then when you get there and you are succeeding consistently, where's the next area that you can feel uncomfortable again? So I guess that's how I think about hitting my stride. there's been a number of different times I've hit my stride throughout my time at Google or even before. And then, I guess I would always think about what is the next thing I can do to, feel that struggle, feel that discomfort again.
Sure, sure. When you think through your current job, you've been in the position that you hold now, the enterprise sales executive for Google Cloud for a couple of years. I'd like to I'd like your help understanding roughly where you fit within Alphabet and then Google or Google Cloud and then where your team fits. It's a really big organization. Can you help us, get our bearings?
Yeah, absolutely. You're 100% correct. It's a massive organization. So the way I would think about the organization is that there is the greater business org within Google. And so within that are different divisions. The biggest one obviously being the ad business at Google. And in my time in ads, I jumped from ad support to a division called large customer sales. Essentially, those are some of the more strategic accounts within the Google's ad business. And so I worked in that division for the better part of 5 or 6 years. And then when I switched over to Google Cloud or GCP, there's somewhat of a parallel structure there where you can work in a division like corporate, where it's a little bit more scaled, and you're working with maybe they're fast growing startups or areas where the organization needs support in figuring out a way forward with maybe customers that are a little bit more nascent. And then the division I've been working in is called enterprise. So essentially, these are not necessarily in terms of size larger, but their footprint and their trajectory is maybe accelerated within cloud, or it's like a strategic account for Google. So that's the area I work in. And so, there are a lot of differences between both teams. One difference is the support that I'm providing certain customers is a little bit more white glove. I have a lower number of customers than maybe someone in a different division within the company, because GCP wants to make sure that those customers are feeling the love, and we can make sure that we support them and can be a little bit more strategic on their trajectory and how they're growing.
Sure. And what kind of things would Google Cloud provide to some of your customers? What are the problems that you solve?
Yeah, so a big one that's a topic right now is cybersecurity. So if there are areas where they need support in ensuring up their security of their servers, or of their footprint in terms of infrastructure technology, that's something that we provide and we help support. Another area that will work is collaboration. So if a customer is interested in some of these really cool things that we're doing with AI, if you want note summarization, or anything within the G Suite, anything within Workspace, that's something we'll provide. And then another area that we do is general infrastructure, right? And how are we supporting the growth goals and the business, not only the technology objectives, but the business objectives of an organization. I think it's like really important to understand where your customer wants to go, where, in order to get that information, there's a lot of different ways we do that. One is obviously with conversations, but you don't want to, call a CIO and not have the right information around their organization. So we'll listen to investor calls, look at 10K reports. If they're a private organization and they don't have those documentations, how can I access my network to learn a little bit more? Maybe I know someone who knows someone who works at that organization. Look at the open roles that they have on their website. Where do they need that support? So, Google Cloud, people think of cloud as this thing that just, puts all your information away from like a data center or a data center that you're owning. It really is much more than just that. Especially with the advent of the AI age that we're all living in now, that technology is now intertwined with every single aspect of our business. And it's only been around in the public eye with ChatGPT and Gemini for a year or so. So it's kind of wild when you think about where this is going to go over the next 5, 10, 20 years.
Exciting times, and perhaps we are just at the beginning. We'll see.
Absolutely.
So, teach us a little bit about your team, the people around you, the people that make the services and support that you provide possible. Who do you collaborate with? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. As massive as Google Cloud is and Alphabet is as a whole, we can't do the work we do without a massive ecosystem of partners. And those partners are both internal and external. So I'll start with the internal partners. So I am the front line, executive, sales executive for my customers. So whenever they need anything from thought leadership, GCP help, whatever it might be, I am that first person that they should be reaching out to. But with that said, there's almost no way I could be, at level 500 for every one of our projects, or excuse me, products and solutions. And so I have for each of our product categories, we have a specialist lead, both on the sales side and on the engineering side, to help support the different initiatives my customers might have. So as I said earlier, cybersecurity is a really big hot topic right now. So I collaborate with another salesperson within my organization and their engineer in order to make sure that once we get that interest from a customer and I'm able to give that, say, elevator pitch as to why this is really important for them, I can bring someone, a lot smarter than I am who can come in and talk a little bit more about, how this is directly going to apply to their business, and maybe some, POCs or test trial projects that we can run to be a proof point so that we can kind of grow our footprint within the organization, and then make sure that, whatever, cybersecurity threat or whatever growth need that the organization has, we can support that.
How interesting. And POC in this context means proof of concept, yeah?
Correct. Yep. Proof of concept. Super important. No large customer or small is going to want to go all in with Google without something that proves what we can do. Infrastructure, cloud, technology in general is so complex with a lot of these organizations, especially if you're an organization that maybe is a little bit more traditional versus a digital native. And just to define that, a digital native would be an organization that was born on the cloud. So, you want to think they're your startups, newer organizations that, are built ground up with, an architecture and infrastructure around their technology. A more traditional organization might be a bank, might be a brick and mortar business that's been around for decades, life science companies that have been around for sometimes over 100 years, depending on which ones you're working with. So they have a lot of technical debt, right? And they're carrying over a lot of old systems that a lot of times need to be modernized. And that's not very easy. Really understanding kind of where your customer is coming from, what they're trying to accomplish is incredibly important, because if they feel like you don't know their business, what incentive do they have to work with you versus the other 10 Ankits who are knocking on their door to try to make a deal?
Makes sense. What did you think this most recent job, your most recent promotion, what did you think this job was actually going to be like?
That is a fantastic question, because when I was applying to this role, I had an idea of what cloud was going to be about. But right when I got into the role, this concept of imposter syndrome, right, which I'm sure many of our listeners have heard of, I've never felt it more than my time in Google Cloud. The ads ecosystem versus the world of cloud they're very related, because a lot of the work we do within ads and marketing gets benefited from having a good infrastructure and a good data pipeline, right? So another big thing we do in cloud is to try to identify how we can pull in a customer's data, structured or unstructured, and then is there a way that we can process it and then be able to have some output that's going to benefit whatever their goals are. Maybe it's customer segmentation. Maybe you're an online retailer and you have tons of email data or customer data, but then you want to figure out, what do my customers really care about, so I can make product decisions, or I can do forecasting, demand forecasting, or even can I give them more particular messaging that they care about. So I'm not sending Ryan, something about, rock climbing when he's really interested in kayaking. So being able to process that data through a good technology and data pipeline is incredibly important and beneficial to ads. However, coming over to this world, you are basically starting at zero, right? And it's a lot of people don't actually make this leap from ads to cloud. It's not a very common path because of how different of a world it is. So imposter syndrome is real. Trying to understand, going back to my time teaching, like, how do I keep my head above water? I'm a ton of information is being thrown at me, right? The proverbial drinking from a fire hose. How can I distill that information for things that are going to serve me in the next hour, in the next day, in the next week? And then I was also being held to pretty aggressive targets, right? I am in a sales role, so I need to make sure that I'm driving revenue for the company. So being able to navigate that was very challenging. I think that it took me a full year to really feel like I had my feet under me. Now, with that said, you fake it till you make it, right? You make sure that you work twice as hard as everyone else that might have a couple of years on you, and you make sure you talk to the right people so that whatever information you need, whatever prep you need, have a partner in crime who's willing to sit down with you and be a mentor. So I think that was incredibly important for me. I had a mentor and a teammate, as well as in a manager that were really invested in my development.
I find it so interesting to see as people move into progressively bigger and bigger roles or switch domains and keep a similar function, how challenging it can really be to get the lexicon, to understand the language, to understand the problems that you're actually able to solve and what your customers care about. Even though you're still an account executive, right? And managing what people need, figuring all that out it's no easy task.
Yeah, and not to pull another parallel, right, from my experience as an educator, but you really are the CEO. As I was the CEO of my classroom, I'm the CEO of my business. So I have a book of business. I have a certain finite number of accounts, and I am the decision maker. Whatever strategy I want to take, I can obviously leverage my manager and the team around me to inform those decisions. But that decision, win or lose, is going to be on me. And there's something obviously intimidating about that, but also empowering about that. Being able to live and die by your decisions and making sure that it's you who's at the front line really changes how you look at things, the risks you're willing to take, the calculated risks you're willing to take. Being willing to ask for help and really swallowing any pride or ego that you have around what you think you're good at or what you think you're bad at. And then also putting your own flavor on it, right? Every salesperson, every account exec has their own way to do their job. What's my brand, right? What is that thing that people are going to remember me in a 20-minute, 15-minute, even say a 10-minute conversation that the next time I send them an email or shoot them a text or see them in the hallway, they're gonna remember that I'm someone that they may want to work with moving forward.
We'll get back to the conversation shortly, but I wanted to tell you about how I can help you find your fit. I offer one-on-one career coaching services for experienced professionals who are preparing to find and land their next role. If you're a director, vice president, or a C-suite executive, and you're ready to explore new opportunities, please go to goodfitcareers.com to apply for a free consultation. I also occasionally send a newsletter which includes stories from professionals who have found their fit, strategies and insights that might be helpful in your job search, and content that I found particularly useful or interesting. If you'd like to learn more, check out goodfitcareers.com and follow me on LinkedIn. Now, back to the conversation. To take a step back and to think from a little bit more of a philosophical perspective, what does your work mean to you?
Yeah, I would say that's a great question because I've taken kind of a path in a journey where I've done a lot of different things, right? Worked in nonprofit work, I worked in education, and now I work in the corporate sector. For me, work is a way to be challenged and to grow. Everything I do and continue to do, if I'm not being challenged, I kind of think, what's the point? So in any opportunity I take, I look at, is this going to be a challenge? Is this a challenge I want to go after? And am I going to grow from it? And if I can answer those three questions, that gives me the confidence to say, yes, this is a worthwhile endeavor. So, to answer your question, Ryan, work to me is a way to grow.
Do you have a favorite project? You've worked on in a range of different arenas. You're everything from the not-for-profit side to education, now in essentially big tech. Is there a project that was your favorite along the way?
So I'll give you two, one from my time in the corporate world and one from outside. From outside, something that's always been important to me has been nonprofit work, in a way, kind of being able to do something that doesn't just support, a corporation, but, really gives back. So that's something that I've always tried to do throughout my career. So something that I've always looked at is, is there an opportunity for me to use my expertise to help out a community or organization? So when I was in school, I had a friend. I have a friend, Terja Chakrabarty, who started a nonprofit, and I had the opportunity to help him with that through high school into college. And now the organization's name is Pratit, and it runs as a standalone nonprofit within Kolkata, India, where we provide medical care in disadvantaged communities, all free of charge. Additionally, today in my community of East Boston, where I live, I got involved with an organization called East Boston Main Streets, where we leverage our resources and expertise to support small businesses within the community. So that's been really fun. We actually have our big fundraiser event today called Taste of Eastie, where we have over 30 organizations, restaurants from East Boston come and set up within a big event space that we have. And it's our big fundraiser. And so that money that we raise from ticket sales is funneled back into the community, whether it be improving signage, training. If one of these organizations needs some support in any way, whether it be skills or financial, that's something that we can contribute to. So that's been a great thing out of work, and I hope something I can continue to do in some way, shape, or form throughout my life. The other area, I would say, from a professional lens, I had an opportunity on the ad side to work with a very large advertiser and be able to do a buyout on YouTube. So basically, that YouTube homepage where you may see an ad, we had the opportunity to do that, and with something that has that much visibility within the organization, it can be very stressful. And I had a lot of late nights that week, but it's very, very fulfilling and satisfying when you open up at 12:01 a.m. and you open YouTube and you see the ad that you were able to help plan out that ad spot, that ad buy. So that was really fun.
Awesome. I love that. How do you believe the world sees your job, the one that you do today?
I think the world sees my job today as a way for us to think about what the future of technology is going to be like. So, we've touched a lot about AI, and, that we're only scratching the surface. It's been incredible to be at a company like Google and an organization like GCP to be able to see how quickly they've accelerated in that area and be able to pull in AI really into every facet of our solutions in our day-to-day life. Initially, it feels a little bit, far away because you're selling products, you're selling infrastructure for, AI processing or training inference. You're selling solutions where now you have some concept of AI thrown onto it and integrated within the product. But just working at Google, we start using these products on our day to day. So we're obviously on Workspace, so we have all the collaboration tools. It has made my job and my ability to do my job way more effective. If I'm trying to process data, right, on sheets, and something that might take me 45 minutes to pull together an analysis or to think about, what can I pull out of this data? I'm able to leverage the Google Assistant and Gemini to be able to do a lot of that for me. So it's been really exciting from that lens. So I think the way people would see my job and my role, or at least the way I would hope that they see it, is I'm providing an avenue for organizations, companies, corporations, different enterprises to be able to leverage this cutting edge technology to support whatever their goals are, whether it be to support their customers to make a better buying experience for, say, an e-commerce company, or if it's a way to make their employees' lives easier or make their roles more productive.
So, Ankit, what do you wish people knew about your job?
I think the first thing I'll say is Google is a very large place, and there's a lot of different roles, and each role, provides kind of a different lens into the world of technology and the things that we're doing. So I think a lot of people, when they see someone who works at Google or Alphabet, they obviously think of the Vince Vaughn movie, right? The Internship. And, it definitely is true in some ways. It's a really great place to work. There's a lot of different benefits and perks. Sleep pods are a thing. I've never used one. I'm not an apper, but there is something beyond that, and it's just it's just a place where you are in a community of people who are incredibly driven, incredibly intelligent, and are just incredibly interesting. So we think about this giant machine of Google, but there are these people behind it who are just so fantastic to work with. I hope people see outside of the cog in a wheel and the machine, and really think about the humans and the people that are doing all this cool stuff behind the curtain.
Sure. Often it is more complicated than I think we give ourselves credit for in those huge companies. Let's say someone's excited about becoming an account executive or perhaps excited about joining Google. What advice would you have for them, or what sort of expectations would you set for them?
Yeah, so if someone, I'll separate the question to two things, Ryan. So the first one is for someone who wants to work at Google, and then the second one is for someone who wants to work, say, within GCP or within cloud. You know, good to work with. So if you can really think about if that is someone that you want to be in an area that you want to invest in, I would really think about what the company's all about, what's in our founding documents, and trying to really understand how you fit into that bigger picture of someone who would be a great fit for the company. And then on the GCP side, I would really think about what is it that excites you about this technology. With that answer, what part of that organization do you want to work in? Do you want to be a seller, right? Do you want to be an account executive who, are you energized by meeting with customers? Can you be someone who doesn't get frustrated with ambiguity? And are you going to be able to navigate that? Can you work on an island, right? We have this massive team around us to support us, but in the end of the day, the decision is yours of what your strategy is going to be. Are you willing to take risks? And then as part of that, are you okay with failing? Because I can tell you right now, I have failed just as many times in this role as I've succeeded. And that, I don't think that's going to change. It's a very tough job. It's very difficult to be able to convince folks that this project or solution is worth taking on the time and resources. So if you're willing to push through that and you're energized by navigating that ambiguity and providing a point of view and thought leadership around a different problem or complex issue that your customer is dealing with, then I would 100% say apply. And if you're not sure, talk to someone, right? Call me, send me a message, send another person on LinkedIn a message. I think the one thing I've noticed is that people at Google are very open to talking about what they're doing. And at least I can speak for myself that I'm always willing to lend a helping hand with someone who's trying to explore. The only reason I'm in Google is because someone offered me an opportunity to apply and offered me a referral. That cracked the door open for me, and then I was super driven to blow the door off the hinges, right? So that's something I really would say and impart to anyone who's interested at working at Google or really any tech company of a similar caliber, is to be willing to take risks, be okay with failing, and then just have an understanding of what you actually want to accomplish for yourself and for the organization.
It sounds wonderful. Tremendous advice on Kit. In terms of managing performance, you're held to a very high standard. I imagine you have probably very challenging to hit targets and goals and metrics. How do you think about managing your own performance, managing your team's performance, and achieving ambitious goals like that?
It's really challenging because, as you said, everyone at Google is held to an incredibly high standard. So what's important for you is to have alignment with your leadership team, your manager, your manager's manager. And one, make sure you're building those relationships. And then number two is make sure they're just as invested into your development as you are. So the goals are very aggressive and sometimes can feel daunting, right? What's important is that as you are progressing towards a goal, what is your plan, right? Create a plan, create steps. I often think of it as a ladder, right? What are those rungs going to be? And once you have that plan, share it with someone who has a lot more experience than you do. In my situation, it might be a colleague, a peer who has been in the role longer than I have. And then it would also be my manager, right? Make sure that they are aligned with it, and make sure that you can leverage them as a sounding board to say, this is something I'm not sure about. Is this strategy right? Can we work through a hypothetical of how this might end up? Where could this fail? So as long as you have a plan, I think it's more about having an approach and making sure that you're working towards that than making sure you win or don't fail. Failure is a part of life. That's always going to happen. If you need to be comfortable with that, and the more comfortable you are with failing and trying to understand how you can learn from those failures, the better off you're going to be in the long run, and to be honest, in the short run. Because then what that's going to allow your leadership to see is that you're someone who's driven, and you're not going to, when you get knocked down, you're going to get right back up, and you're going to be able to learn from that and maybe figure out a different path to get from A to B and to accomplish those goals.
Tremendous advice. And just thinking about the concept of resilience and being able to say, look, I'm going to fail. I expect at certain points I will fail. And the value in that is figuring out what went wrong, what can I do different next time? And instead of letting it kind of get you down and slow your progress, understanding that it's part of the game, and that being able to pick yourself back up and press on from there. I mean, it's such an important life and business lesson. Well said.
Absolutely. And I think that the two terms I would really hone in on are, one is grit, right? How can you really dig into a problem and fight through that adversity and ambiguity to try to make some progress. And then I think the big theme here is having a growth mindset. You're always going to have someone who's in the room that's smarter than you, right? You're always going to have someone who overachieves. Even if you are blowing it out of the water, there's always going to be someone that or something that's going to be ahead of you. So I think it's really important that no matter where you are in your journey and your trajectory, if you can have a growth mindset and also show others that you're willing to learn and grow, that's going to pay so many dividends throughout your career. I know for me it has, because as I said, it's not always been easy, but even when I failed, being able to have a positive outlook and a growth mindset has been possibly one of the most important things for my success thus far.
That's wonderful. Taking a step back and thinking more at a macro level, what are you excited about for the future?
I am incredibly excited about technology. Ever since I left the classroom, the one area, whether I work at Google, somewhere else, in a different role, a different function, I definitely want to work in tech, because it's just such an exciting time to figure out how we can leverage these different technologies and breakthroughs for how it can improve not only what companies do, but also what we're doing as a society. We're in this like really pivotal time. AI is changing, slowly or quickly, what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. And it's only been a year. So I'm incredibly optimistic and excited about what the future holds. So from a macro level, I think where we're going, and where technology can help us is going to be it's going to be massive. So I'm incredibly excited about that. Personally, for me, I think I have a little bit of a different perspective now when I think about work. I've been at Google for, as I said, 9 years. So I have to really think about, where do I want to invest in my career? What path do I want to take? Which next challenge do I want to try to overcome? So I think it's just, it's really exciting to be kind of in a position right now with as much opportunity as there is in technology. Everything's in a cycle. Things get tighter in the market, things get looser, and opportunities come and go. But as long as you have kind of a north star as to how you want to progress, the only thing that's going to get in your way is yourself. So just making sure that you have a positive outlook, is there's really nothing that can stop you.
Tremendous. In terms of your field specifically, cloud providers, technology, AI, it's the summer, it's July of 2024 right now. What do you think your field's going to look like in 2030?
What is it going to look like in 2030? That is a great question, Ryan. I wish I had a crystal ball because things are changing so fast. We can only imagine what it's going to be like next year, let alone say 6 years from now. If you ask me, in 2030, the world is going to be much more reliant on cloud technology. So as we approach the future where AI is going to be at every single corner and turn, that takes a lot of processing power. And so really it's going to be up to some of these hyperscalers with the resources such as GCP, such as an Azure with Microsoft or an AWS with Amazon, to be able to provide the infrastructure needed in order for organizations to succeed at whatever goals they have with the technologies that they need. So 6 years from now, I think we're going to be in a very different place that we are right now. I think that many more companies are going to be accepting of AI. Right now, it's kind of the thing that everyone wants to write on a press release that they're doing stuff with AI, but what they're actually doing, I think that's a little bit more variable. But some examples I would say is I think that AI is going to it's something that every single person is going to use both as an individual and also as a worker, right? As an employee at a company. We're going to be much more open to leveraging technologies like AI, maybe to draft an email, to, figure out how we can automate certain processes that are taking us away from time that could be leveraged for something more strategic. I would also say that I think that the hyperscalers within the ecosystem are going to continue to grow because they are the ones with the maximum amount of resources in order to help organizations. But then you're going to also have a really rich ecosystem of startups that are going to be leveraging AI technologies in every industry. We're already seeing it happen in education. Would be a great example. The way that folks like Magic School AI and other organizations are leveraging technology and this cutting edge technology to be able to deliver just in this situation personalized experiences for education experiences for students is phenomenal. Also, we think about how is this going to revolutionize medicine? We're already seeing AI be able to do really incredible things, such as identifying better ways to do surgeries or figuring out better ways to identify illnesses or different types of cancers. So, if we're already doing that now, with AI really just coming to the forefront of everyone's everyday conversations, where we're going to be in 6 years, I don't really think anyone's going to be able to grasp how far we're going to be able to take this thing and improve and contribute to everyone's everyday lives.
Exciting times, and we are here to see it. Ankit, how do you like to waste time?
How do I like to waste time? I have a dog. He's a German Shepherd Husky mix. He is incredibly energetic. So I think a lot of my wasted time, and I wouldn't call it wasted, but love taking walks with him around East Boston. A lot of that time is spent listening to podcasts. So I'm a big podcaster, love listening about news, about different stories. It's kind of a really good way for me to kind of get my mind off things. And then I'm able to come back, say, to the computer really fresh. I really enjoy cooking, so that's something I like to do. Around 6 o'clock or 5:30 or whenever I'm able to step away from my computer. I love cooking because it once again kind of just numbs my brain away from something that I've been doing the whole day and think about something completely different that I really enjoy. Those I would say would be two big things. I love to travel. Once again, I don't know if it's a time waster, but it's definitely something I have a passion for. And then I would say the last thing I would say, which is probably a true waste of time, is trying to teach my dog commands because he's very stubborn. And so while he's super smart, and if you have like a toy or treat he really wants, he'll do anything you want. But we're trying to work on come right now. So if anyone has any tips, please reach out to me.
Whew, yeah, dog training is not my area of expertise, but I think those all sound like very noble pursuits. Ankin, is there anything that you'd like to recommend for the audience, whether it's content or podcasts, books, anything that you might find, you might think that people would find valuable out there?
Yeah, it's a great question, Ryan. I think that one thing I would say is at a high level, I would just say know your worth. just know that whatever you think your worth is probably more. We are always our biggest critics. So don't ever fear a rejection or a denial for something. So, especially in the professional world, it's a numbers game, first and foremost. So the more you can apply and also the more you can network, leveraging, LinkedIn and, your social networks to really talk to people and just find folks who are willing to be a sounding board for you to develop your ideas. So that would be number one. Number two, I would say, is try to find a new podcast. That's something I try to do, maybe once a month. Is I just go through the lists. I have my dailies that I listen to, a news podcast, a business podcast, and whatnot. But then try to find something that's way different than what you're doing. So, you'd be surprised of how much you can learn from just trying to do something completely different or learning from something that you normally wouldn't do. And then I would also say, in terms of content, I like to pick up just like a random magazine and just try to start reading about something that I know nothing about. So whether it's, The Economist, Entertainment Weekly, going to a random website and just trying to learn from, say, New York Times or Politico, if you're into politics, just try to understand someone else's perspective, because if you're able to do that, it's going to allow you to connect with folks, even if you don't agree with them. And then just bringing it back into, if you're interested in sales or customer facing role, it's really, being able to connect with someone is more important than you would think. So if you can connect with someone, if you know everything about a product, but you're not able to connect, you're not going anywhere, right? But if you are able to find some common ground, to connect with someone, to make sure that they see you as more than just someone who's trying to sell them something, that's going to pay dividends in the end. So yeah, I would just push people to feel challenged, and whenever you feel comfortable, trying to find something that makes you uncomfortable and learn from it.
Wonderful. And excellent advice to close on. Ankit, thank you so very much for joining me and sharing your perspective.
Yeah, Ryan, hey, really appreciate the time, and thanks so much for giving me the invitation to join this podcast.
If you enjoyed this episode, make sure to subscribe for new episodes, leave a review, and tell a friend. Good Fit Careers is hosted by me, Ryan Dickerson, and is produced and edited by Mellow Vox Productions. Marketing is by Story Angled, and our theme music is by Surftronica, with additional music from Andrew Esperanceta. I'd like to express my gratitude to all of our guests for sharing their time, stories, and perspectives with us. And finally, thank you to all of our listeners. If you have any recommendations on future guests, questions, or comments, please send us an email at hello@goodfitcareers.com.